She couldn't understand human tears until they saved her dying world. On the planet Krynn, where logic rules like a strict king, Zara stood in a forest made of crystals. Her silver eyes sparkled under the soft glow of the Tree of Life. At 32 years old, she was a talented galactic biologist who had spent her life studying the DNA of countless species across the galaxy. To the people of Krynn, emotions weren't just unfamiliar. They were weaknesses, mistakes of evolution that needed to be removed. Their bodies had no tear ducts, no shaking lips, or fast-beating hearts. Everything was calm and rational. Zara was the perfect example of this way of life. Every move she made was sharp and exact, like a machine working smoothly. Her short black hair was neatly cut, framing her sharp face, and her steady silver eyes scanned the tall crystal columns around her. Each surface reflected her total control. When a message from the Interplanetary Emotion Research Institute in Geneva, Earth, came through her communication device, Zara didn't hesitate. The mission was to study what she called optical leakage, human tears. It was a new challenge, a chance to show her value. On Krynn, tears were seen as a biological error, something silly that humans refused to let go of. Zara didn't care much about rumors of an ecological crisis back home. With a Tree of Life, their main energy source was slowly dying. To her, that was the Council's problem, not hers. She focused only on the task ahead. As she stepped onto a shiny spaceship, its smooth surface reflecting her cold eyes, she wondered, why do humans hold on as such a broken trait? The thought crossed her dry mind for a moment, but she pushed it away as unimportant. The trip to Earth was quiet. Zara thought about what she was leaving behind. Krynn was a world of order, where everything was planned and controlled. Her parents, both famous scientists, had taught her that emotions stop progress. From a young age, she learned to hide any sign of weakness and to think in numbers and facts, not feelings. When the spaceship landed in Geneva, she stepped out into a world totally different from her own. The air was full of noise, laughter, voices, and odd sounds she couldn't name. Her silver eyes narrowed as she tried to make sense of the chaos. A group from the Institute welcomed her, their warm smiles making her feel strange. "Welcome to Earth, Dr. Zara," the director said with excitement. She nodded stiffly and replied in a flat voice, "Thank you. I'm ready to start my research." But as she walked into her assigned lab, she felt something odd growing inside her, a nameless curiosity about the emotional beings she would soon meet. The lab was Zara's safe place, a clean space with humming machines and bright holographic screens. She set everything up perfectly, each tool in its exact spot, like a part of herself. Through a big window, she looked down at Geneva. People and aliens moved together in a wild, rule-free dance. They laughed, hugged, and even fought, things she couldn't understand. To Zara, tears were something to study, a puzzle to solve with science. But as she stood there, the golden light from the city's dome shining on her face, she felt a strange pressure. It was as if Earth was daring her to leave her logical world and face something bigger. In the 22nd century, Earth had changed into a planet of amazing technology and strength. Eco-cities grew under huge protective domes, like giant glass shields hiding the scars of the past, dust storms and harsh weather that had almost ruined the planet. Geneva, the center of the Multiverse Cultural Alliance, showed how different species could work together. Its smart dome, made of special nanoglass, turned sunlight into bright golden rays. These rays lit up vertical gardens growing on smooth research towers. Below, the streets were alive with color. Humans in bright clothes walked next to tentacled scholars from Zeta, 9, and crystal poets from Arcturus. Their voices mixed with the buzz of delivery drones and music from outdoor cafes, making a loud, messy sound that Zara found both weird and unsettling. Zara's lab sat in one of the tallest towers, a quiet, clean space in the middle of the city's noise. The white walls and steady hum of machines felt familiar, like Krynn. But one look out the window brought her back to Earth. She saw a child drop their ice cream and cry, a couple fight and then hug, and friends laugh loudly outside a tech shop. These actions confused her. How could a species build such incredible cities, but let emotions control them? To Zara, tears were a mystery to figure out, but the world outside her lab made her wonder, is there something in this mess that I don't get? Geneva was more than a city. It was a sign of survival and mixing cultures. The Multiverse Cultural Alliance had made it a place for research and sharing, where ideas bumped into each other and blended. Buildings had soft curves and were covered in plants, as if humans wanted to fix their old mistakes with nature. Machines rolled through the streets, while markets sold goods from across the galaxy, like glowing spices from Mars or nanofiber cloth from Andromeda. Zara watched it all with her cold eyes, studying every detail like a scientist with a sample. But the golden light from the dome, bouncing off her lab's glass, seemed to sink into her. It showed the difference between her clean workspace and the lively world outside. Standing in her lab, Zara felt alone. Krynn was all about stillness and order, but Earth was full of movement and emotion. She couldn't ignore that something here pulled at her, the human she was sent to study. Her lab might be a safe spot, but it also reminded her that the answers she wanted weren't in data or numbers. They were out there, in the laughter and tears of people. Liam walked into Zara's lab with a calm confidence. His worn jacket and gray-streaked hair showed a life that hadn't been easy. At 38, he used to be a psychologist, helping many patients heal from past pain. But the erythra plague of 2045 took his wife, Nora, leaving him with a sadness he carried everywhere. Liam could cry whenever he wanted, which made him Zara's research subject, a skill she found both interesting and strange. He leaned against the lab table, his deep brown eyes showing a bit of humor as he said, "So, you're here to pick apart my soul with a microscope?" His voice was soft but had a quiet strength, like he was used to hiding his hurt. Zara didn't respond to his joke. To her, humor was foreign, something that didn't fit in a logical world. "I need a sample of your optical leakage." "Make it now," she said, her voice flat like a robot's. Liam raised an eyebrow, a flash of pain in his eyes before he crossed his arms. "Tears aren't something you can order like coffee," he said, his tone firm with a hint of sarcasm. His refusal shocked Zara. On Krynn, every subject obeyed without question. She turned on her scanners, their whirring filling the silence. But Liam's steady stare made her nervous. He wasn't just a test subject. He was a puzzle, a man with pain her tools couldn't measure. Their short meeting ended when Liam turned to leave, leaving Zara unsettled. She watched him go, her mind full of questions. Why did he say no? How could someone hold so much sadness and still seem so calm? Her machines couldn't answer this. She realized her lab, with all its perfection, wasn't enough to understand tears. To figure out Liam, she needed to see him in his world, where emotions were real, not just numbers. With new determination, Zara left the lab, her silver eyes shining with purpose. She would follow Liam and watch him in his daily life, hoping to unlock the secret she came to Earth to find. Zara followed Liam through the busy streets of Geneva, her silver eyes darting over the strange, noisy world around her. People laughed and shouted, their voices bouncing off the eco-city's dome. It all felt messy and wild compared to her clean, quiet lab. She stayed focused on Liam, who moved with a steady purpose ahead of her. He turned down a small path and stopped at a gate, then stepped into a rose garden. Zara paused, unsure, but her curiosity pulled her forward, and she slipped in behind him. The garden was calm and beautiful, a little world of its own. Roses bloomed in bright reds, pinks, and yellows, their petals soft under the warm sunlight streaming through the dome. Liam walked among them, his hands careful as he trimmed a stem or poured water at the roots. His face looked different here, peaceful, almost gentle, not like the guarded man she'd met before. Every bush was neat, the soil dark and rich, the leaves green and healthy. A small sign near the gate read, Nora's Garden. Zara didn't know who Nora was, but the name stuck in her mind, a quiet question she couldn't answer yet. From behind a wooden frame covered in climbing vines, Zara watched Liam. An old woman came up to him, moving slowly with a cane. He smiled, big and warm, and held out his arm to help her walk. They stopped by the roses, talking softly, laughing now and then like they shared a long history. Zara felt something odd, a tug inside her chest she couldn't name. She didn't get why this moment mattered, but she pulled out her datapad and typed, "Watching humans connect." It was just data to her, or so she told herself. Back in the lab, Zara worked on the few tear samples she'd gotten from Liam. Her machines buzzed and clicked, scanning the tiny drops, but the results made no sense. The tears had chemicals, neurotransmitters she called them, that didn't fit any pattern she knew. They shifted and changed, tied to emotions her models couldn't pin down. She ran the tests again, checking records from Krynn and other planets, but the answers stayed out of reach. It was like the tears were hiding something, a code her logical brain couldn't crack. She started pacing, her neat steps turning messy as frustration built up, a feeling she wasn't used to handling. Zara decided she needed more tears, better ones. She set up ways to make Liam feel big emotions, thinking that might help her data. She showed him sad pictures, broken homes, lost families, and played sound of people crying. She even built a virtual reality scene where everything he cared about fell apart. But Liam didn't break. His face stayed calm, his brown eyes steady. In a virtual test, his eyes got wet for a moment, but he blinked hard and pushed the tears back. Zara turned up the sadness, but he pulled off the headset and shook his head. "This isn't right," he said, his voice low but firm. "I won't let you twist my grief for your experiments." She stared at him, caught off guard. "It's for science," she said, her voice sharp. "To figure things out." Liam's eyes met hers, strong and clear. "Some things aren't for you to cut open. My grief belongs to me, not your research." He stood tall, his words heavy. "I won't turn my grief into your science project." Then he walked away, leaving her alone with her machines. Those words stuck with Zara, buzzing in her head like a glitch she couldn't fix. On Krynn, emotions were weak, something to push down and ignore. But Liam held his pain close, like it mattered, like it made him stronger. She didn't understand it, but she wanted to. Over the next few days, she kept thinking about him. Who was Nora? Why did he protect his sadness so fiercely? She started watching him more, not just for her tests, but because she needed to know what made him different. One day, Zara went back to the garden. Liam sat on a bench, holding a small locket in his hands. He opened it, and a tiny smile crossed his face, soft and real. She wondered what he saw inside, what memory lit up his eyes like that. Her silver gaze stayed on him, taking in every detail, the way he sat so still, the way he seemed both broken and whole. For the first time, she didn't see him as just a subject. He was a person, someone with a story she couldn't measure with scanners or charts. Zara's frustration was still there, clawing at her when she thought about her failed tests. She'd pace the lab at night, staring at screens full of useless numbers, her hands tight with anger. But mixed with that was something new, curiosity, sharp and alive. Liam's quiet strength pulled at her. How could he feel so much and not fall apart? What kept him going? She didn't have answers, but she wanted them, not just for her research, but for herself. Standing in the garden's shadow, she realized she was starting to care about the man behind the tears, not just the tears themselves. Zara sat in her lab, her fingers tapping quickly on her datapad. She was trying to find a pattern in the tear sample she had collected, but the numbers on the screen wouldn't line up. They blurred together, refusing to give her answers. Her mind felt foggy, and she couldn't focus. She leaned back in her chair and rubbed her eyes, hoping for clarity. A loud beep sliced through the quiet room. Zara looked down at her communication device. The emblem of the Krynn Council flashed brightly on the screen. Her stomach twisted into a knot. She pressed the button, and a hologram appeared, a tall figure in a dark robe, one of the council members. His voice came out cold and flat. "Dr. Zara," he said, "we have urgent news. The tree of life is dying. Our energy reserves are dropping fast." Zara's heart skipped a beat. The tree of life was the core of Krynn. It gave power to their cities, their machines, everything they needed to live. If it died, their whole planet would fall apart. "The problem is a missing compound," the voice went on. Our scientists think it's linked to emotional energy, something we've ignored for too long. You have 30 days to find a solution, or Krynn will collapse. The hologram blinked off, leaving Zara alone in the silence. 30 days. That wasn't enough time. She didn't even know what emotional energy was supposed to mean. On Krynn, emotions were a weakness, something they had trained themselves to push away. Now, the council was saying that same weakness might be their only hope. Zara slumped in her chair, her thoughts spinning. She had come to Earth to study tears, but now her planet's survival rested on her shoulders. The pressure felt like a heavy stone sitting on her chest. She could barely breathe under it. Then, a new thought hit her, sharp and unsettling. Krynn had always valued logic above everything else. They saw emotions as messy and useless. But if this emotional compound was real, then maybe Krynn's way wasn't perfect. Maybe her own habit of shutting out feelings was wrong too. Zara got up and walked to the glass wall of her lab. She stared at her reflection. Her silver eyes looked back, uncertain for the first time. She had always been proud of her control, her ability to stay calm and rational. Now doubt crept in. Was detachment a strength, or had it blinded her? Her mind drifted to Liam. She thought of his steady strength, the way he carried his pain like it was part of him. He didn't hide from his emotions. He lived with them. Maybe humans knew something Krynn didn't. Maybe there was power in feelings, a kind she had never considered. Zara tightened her fists, trying to pull herself together. She had to focus. Krynn was counting on her. But every time she tried to plan, Liam's face popped in her head. His brown eyes, deep with quiet stories, wouldn't leave her alone. They tugged at her, making her question everything. She shook her head hard. "I need to work," she said out loud, her voice shaky. "I need to find the answer." But she wasn't sure anymore. The answer might not be in her datapad or her lab equipment. It might be in the one thing she'd been taught to avoid, emotions. Zara turned to the window and looked out at Geneva's Golden Dome. The city buzzed with life. People moved through the streets, their faces showing joy, anger, sadness, all the things she didn't understand. For the first time, she wondered if those feelings held a strength she couldn't see, a power that might save Krynn. She took a slow, deep breath and turned back to her datapad. She had 30 days. She had to try. Zara stepped into the rose garden again, the gravel crunching softly under her feet. The air carried a sweet scent, and the golden light from the dome above made the roses glow in shades of red, pink, and yellow. She spotted Liam near a bush, his hands moving carefully as he watered the plants. His face looked calm, softer than it had in the lab. She stayed back, watching from behind a wooden frame draped with vines, her silver eyes taking in every detail. An elderly woman approached Liam, her steps slow and shaky. She leaned on a cane, but when Liam saw her, he smiled, a wide, warm smile that lit up his eyes. He offered his arm, and she took it, her face relaxing as they walked together. They stopped by a cluster of roses, talking quietly. The woman laughed at something Liam said, a soft sound that floated through the garden. Zara tilted her head, confused. She didn't understand why this moment felt important, but her chest tightened in a way she couldn't explain. She pulled out her datapad and typed. Human interaction. Warmth observed. It was just data, she told herself, but the words felt hollow. Liam glanced up and saw her. "Hey, Zara," he called, his voice friendly. "Come help me with these roses." She hesitated, unsure what to do, but she walked over. Liam handed her a small watering can. "Pour it gently at the roots," he said, showing her how. Zara followed his lead, the cool metal of the can steady in her hands. Water trickled into the soil, and she watched it sink in, dark and rich. She reached out and touched a rose petal, soft, fragile, unlike anything on Krynn. She brought it to her nose and breathed in. The sweet, earthy smell filled her senses, new and strange. "What do you think?" Liam asked, watching her. "It's nice," she said, struggling to find a word. Liam chuckled. "Nice? That's all you've got?" Her cheeks felt warm, a sensation she didn't recognize. "I don't have words for it," she admitted. "That's okay," he said, his tone gentle. Sometimes you don't need them. They worked in silence for a while, the garden quiet except for the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the dome. Then Liam spoke again. You know, Nora loved these roses. She planted most of them herself. Nora? Zara asked, her curiosity sharp. My wife, Liam said, his voice dropping. She passed away during the erythra plague. Zara remembered the sign at the gate. I'm sorry, she said, the words feeling clumsy. Liam gave a small, sad smile. It's all right. She left me this garden and her soup recipe. I was thinking of making some today. Want to learn how? Zara blinked. Cooking? On Krynn, machines handled food. She'd never done anything like it. But something in Liam's offer pulled at her. Yes, she said. They walked to his house, a small cottage near the garden. Inside, the kitchen was warm, with wooden counters and pots hanging from hooks. The air smelled faintly of herbs. Liam set out ingredients: chicken, carrots, celery, onions, and a handful of spices. He handed Zara a knife. Chop these, he said, slicing a carrot to show her. Zara tried, her cuts uneven and awkward. She dropped the carrot, and it rolled across the floor. She bent to grab it, but Liam waved her off. Leave it. We'll clean later. Focus on this. He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers as he guided the knife. Relax, he said. It's not about being perfect. It's about feeling it. Feeling? Zara asked, frowning. How do you measure that? You don't, Liam said. You taste, you adjust, you trust yourself. Trust herself? On Krynn, everything was exact, calculated. But here, with Liam's hand steadying hers, she felt something shift. They finished chopping, and Liam showed her how to simmer the soup. The kitchen filled with a rich, savory smell, warmth rising from the pot, steam curling in the air. Zara stirred, the heat brushing her face. It was strange, but not unpleasant. Why do you keep a recipe? She asked, watching the broth bubble. Wouldn't it be easier to forget? Liam paused, his spoon still in the pot. Easier, maybe, he said, but not better. The pain reminds me how much I loved her. It's part of me now. Zara stared at him. Pain is inefficient. It doesn't help you, doesn't it? Liam said, turning to her. It keeps her alive in my memory. Without it, I'd lose that. She didn't understand, but his words stuck with her. On Krynn, pain was erased, wiped clean like a mistake. Liam held on to it, gave it meaning. It was a logic she couldn't grasp, yet it pulled at her, tugging at something deep inside. They sat at the table, bowls of soup steaming between them. Zara took a spoonful. The taste burst in her mouth, savory, comforting, like a hug she didn't know she needed. She closed her eyes, letting it settle. When she opened them, Liam was watching her, a small smile on his face. Good, right? He said. She nodded, unable to speak. The warmth spread through her, not just from the soup, but from something else, a connection she couldn't name. They cleaned up together, the clink of dishes filling the quiet. Zara's mind raced. She'd come to Earth to study tears, but this was more than data. Liam wasn't just a subject anymore. He was a person, someone who made her feel things she didn't understand. As she left his house, the evening light casting long shadows across the garden, Zara felt different. The air was cool on her skin, but inside, she was warm, lighter, somehow. She replayed the day, the roses, the soup, Liam's words. They swirled together, stirring feelings she'd never had before. She didn't push them away this time. Instead, she let them linger, like the taste of the soup still on her tongue. She didn't know what it all meant, but for the first time, she wanted to find out. Zara sat in her lab, staring at the screen. The data from Liam's tears glowed in front of her, revealing something incredible. When he thought about Nora, his tears were different. They contained a unique chemical, one that matched what Krynn desperately needed. Her heart raced as the truth hit her. This could save her planet. She leaned closer, her silver eyes wide with excitement. The chemical structure danced across the screen, a perfect fit for the missing piece. For a moment, she felt pure joy. Her research had worked. But then a memory stopped her cold. Liam's voice echoed in her mind. Pain reminds me how deeply I loved. Her stomach twisted. To get more tears, she'd have to ask him to relive that pain. Zara stood and paced the lab, her steps uneven. She pictured Krynn, the tree of life fading, its light dimming, her people suffering. She had a duty to save them. But then she thought of Liam, his warm smile, his gentle hands tending the roses. He'd already given her so much. Asking him to hurt again felt wrong, like a betrayal. She stopped by her desk and picked up the vial of tears. It shimmered faintly, a tiny green spark in the light. Beautiful, but born from sadness. Could she really push him to cry more? To rip open old wounds? On Krynn, emotions were erased, but Liam had shown her they mattered. Pain wasn't just weakness, it was human. Her mind spun. She imagined the tree of life crumbling, Krynn falling into darkness. Lives depended on her, but she also saw Liam's face, the quiet strength in his eyes. He wasn't just data, he was someone she cared about. The choice tore at her, save her world or protect his heart. Zara gripped the vial tighter, her knuckles white. There had to be another way, a path that didn't break him. Maybe if she told him everything, he'd understand. Maybe they could solve it together. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. She couldn't do this alone. She needed to trust him. With the vial in hand, Zara left the lab. Her steps were firm as she headed to the garden, ready to share the truth with Liam. Zara stood in Liam's garden, the vial of tears clutched tightly in her hand. The air was cool, and the golden light from the dome cast long shadows across the roses. Liam sat on a bench, his back to her, his hands resting on his knees. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. She had to tell him. "Liam," she said, her voice shaky. "I need to talk to you." He turned, his brown eyes meeting hers. "What's wrong?" he asked, sensing her tension. She stepped closer, her fingers trembling around the vial. "It's about my planet, Krynn. There's a crisis. Our energy source, the tree of life, is dying. If we don't find a way to save it, everything will collapse." Liam's brow furrowed. "That sounds serious. But what does that have to do with me?" Zara swallowed hard. "The tree needs a specific compound to survive. I've been studying your tears, and I found something. When you think about Nora, your tears have that compound. They could save my world." His face hardened. "You want me to cry for your planet? To dig up my pain for your science?" She flinched at his words. "I know it's a lot to ask, but millions of lives are at stake. I wouldn't ask if there was another way." Liam stood up, his jaw tight. "I'm not your lab rat for despair, Zara. My grief isn't a tool for you to use." Tears welled in her eyes, but she couldn't cry. Not like humans. Her body shook, a strange, tearless sob escaping her. It was the first time she'd ever felt this way. "Please," she whispered. "I've never asked anyone for help like this. But I've seen how strong you are, how you carry your pain. Maybe that strength can save my world." He stared at her, his anger softening as he saw her tremble. "You're not like the others from your planet, are you? You're learning." She nodded, her voice barely audible. "I am, and I need your help to understand." Liam took a deep breath, his eyes searching hers. "All right, I'll do it. Not just for Krynn, but for you. I can see you're trying to bridge our worlds." Zara's heart lifted, a mix of relief and gratitude washing over her. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadying. "We'll need to go to your old home, where your memories of Nora are strongest." He nodded, his face serious. "Let's go then. Time's running out." They walked together, side by side, the weight of what lay ahead hanging between them. Liam led Zara through the quiet streets of Geneva. The noise of the city faded behind them, and the soft light of street lamps took over. It didn't talk much. Both felt the heavy importance of what they were about to do. Zara held a small vial in her hand, gripping it so tight her knuckles turned white. She glanced at Liam now and then. His face looked serious, like he was ready for something hard, but his eyes seemed far away, lost in thoughts of the past. They stopped at a small house that looked old and worn. The paint was peeling, and the garden was full of wildflowers and weeds, growing wild and free. It felt like no one had cared for it in a long time. Liam stood at the gate, his hand on the rusty latch. "This was our home," he said quietly. "Nora's and mine." Zara nodded. Her throat felt tight, like she couldn't swallow. She could almost hear the happy sounds that used to fill this place. Laughter, love, life. Now, it was silent, a reminder of something lost. Liam opened the gate and walked in. Zara followed close behind. The front door creaked loudly when he unlocked it. Inside, the house was dim and dusty. Tiny specks floated in the faint light coming through the windows. The air smelled old, like books left on a shelf too long. He took her to the living room. A faded couch sat against one wall, with a knitted blanket hanging over the arm. On the mantel above the fireplace, there were photos, smiling people frozen in happy moments. In one picture, a woman with bright eyes looked out. Zara knew it was Nora. She stared at the photo, feeling a strange ache she didn't understand. Liam sat on the couch and put his hands together between his knees. "This is where it happened," he said, almost too quiet to hear. "The day she died." Zara sat next to him. She held the vial in her lap. "Tell me," she said gently, "if you can." He took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, they were shiny with tears he hadn't let fall yet. "It was the erythra plague," he began. "The hospitals couldn't keep up. People were dying too fast. Nora was a nurse. She worked all the time, trying to save everyone she could." His voice broke a little, and he stopped to swallow. "She got sick, of course. I told her to stay home, to take care of herself, but she wouldn't. She said she had to help. That's who she was." Zara listened. Her chest hurt in a new way, like something inside her was waking up. She wanted to touch his arm or say something kind, but she didn't know what to do. "The day she fell," Liam went on, "I was at work. They called me and said she was in the hospital. I ran as fast as I could, but when I got there, she was already gone. I held her hand, but she didn't feel me. She was already gone." Tears rolled down his face, quiet and slow. Zara watched, her own eyes stinging. She lifted the vial with a shaky hand and caught the tears as they fell. Each drop glowed a soft green, like a tiny light full of life. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Her voice sounded heavy, full of feeling. Liam shook his head and wiped his face with his sleeve. "It's okay. I've learned to keep going. But always hurts." Zara looked at the vial. It was half full now, and the glow was stronger, lighting up the dark room a little. She felt thankful, but also bad for asking this of him. "Thank you," she said, looking into his eyes. "For telling me." He nodded. His eyes were red, but they looked steady now. "I hope it helps your planet." Nora would have liked that. They sat there quietly for a while. The past felt heavy around them, like a blanket they couldn't shake off. Then Liam stood up and held out his hand. "Let's go back," he said. "There's nothing else here." Zara took his hand. His skin was warm against hers. It was just a small touch, but it made her feel steady, like she wasn't alone. They left the house together, and the door clicked shut behind them. As they walked away, Zara slipped the vial into her pocket. The streets were calm, and the street lamps glowed softly. She felt different inside, like something had changed. The walls she'd built to keep feelings out were breaking apart. In their place, she felt something new, understanding, closeness, maybe even care. She looked at Liam walking beside her, his shape clear in the dim light. Whatever this was, it was real, and it mattered. Zara sat in the shuttle, gripping the controls tightly. The vial of tears rested safely in her pocket, glowing faintly. She had to reach Krynn quickly. The shuttle hummed as it lifted off, leaving Earth's golden dome behind. Stars flashed by the window, streaks of light cutting through the dark space. The trip turned rough fast. A meteor storm hit, rocks zooming toward her like a swarm of angry bees. She jerked the controls left and right, dodging the biggest ones. A small meteor slammed into the shuttle's side, making it shake violently. Alarms screamed, and red lights blinked wildly. Zara's robotic arm sparked, damage from a hit. She clenched her jaw and kept going. The vial had to stay safe. After a long, tense stretch, the storm finally cleared. The shuttle steadied, and Zara let out a shaky breath. Her arm dangled, broken and useless, but the vial was still intact. She landed on Krynn, the ground crunching beneath the shuttle's legs. The air felt cold, and the sky hung heavy and gray, like the planet was unwell. Zara stepped out, holding the vial close. Ahead, the tree of life loomed, its branches bare, twisted, and nearly lifeless, like a dying skeleton. A crowd had gathered around it, their faces worn with worry and exhaustion. They turned to her, eyes flickering with faint hope. She trudged toward the tree, her steps slow and heavy. The council stood waiting, their dark robes stark against the pale dirt. "Do you have it?" one demanded, his voice cutting through the silence. Zara nodded and raised the vial. It glowed brighter now, as if it sensed it was home. She knelt at the tree's roots and tipped the vial, letting the tears spill onto the soil. The ground soaked them up greedily. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a low rumble rolled up from deep below. The tree quivered. A green light pulsed from the roots, snaking up the trunk and out to the branches. Fresh leaves burst out, vivid and alive. The air turned sweet and clean, like the first breath after a storm. The crowd gasped. Some dropped to their knees, overcome with relief. Zara stood watching, her chest tight with emotion. The tree glowed strong and steady again. She'd done it. But her mind drifted to Liam, to the pain he'd poured into those tears. A heaviness settled in her, gratitude tangled with guilt. She'd saved Krynn, but it had cost him so much. She stayed there, her broken arm limp at her side, gazing at the tree. It was beautiful, its light washing over everything. Yet deep inside, Zara felt different, changed in a way she couldn't undo. Zara stepped into Liam's garden, the familiar crunch of gravel under her feet blending with the soft hum of Geneva's dome overhead. The roses glowed in the golden light, their petals bright against the dark soil, but her chest felt tight. She had just returned from Krynn, where the tree of life now shimmered with life, its branches pulsing with energy thanks to Liam's tears. Her planet was saved, but the victory wasn't as sweet as she'd hoped. She spotted Liam sitting on the bench, his head bowed, hands resting loosely in his lap. He looked up as she approached, his brown eyes duller than she remembered. "You're back," he said, his voice faint but warm. Zara nodded and sat beside him. "Krynn is alive again," she said, her silver eyes catching the light. "The tree of life is stronger than ever. But the council demoted me. They called my methods illogical." Liam tilted his head. "Illogical? You saved millions." "They don't see it that way," she replied, a hint of bitterness in her tone. "On Krynn, emotions are still a defect. They think I've lost my edge." She paused, then added, "But I don't care. I've learned something they haven't." A small smile tugged at Liam's lips. "You've changed, Zara. You're not the same person who walked into my lab." She met his gaze, feeling a flicker of pride. Not for Krynn, but for herself. The biologist who once saw feelings as a flaw now understood their strength. It was a quiet triumph, one she couldn't explain in equations. Then she noticed his hands trembling slightly. "Liam, how are you?" she asked, her voice softening. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "The doctors call it frozen heart syndrome. It happens when emotions hit too hard, too fast. Reliving all that, it's left me weak." Zara's stomach dropped. Guilt clawed at her. She had asked him to open his wounds, and now he was paying for it. "This is my fault," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Liam shook his head. "No, Zara, I chose to help you. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and I'd do it again." "But you're hurting," she insisted, her silver eyes shimmering with something close to tears, though she still couldn't shed them. He reached out, his hand shaky but firm as it closed over hers. "It's not your burden. We're in this together now." Her fingers tightened around his, a rush of gratitude warming her. She had saved Krynn, but Liam had saved her in a way she hadn't expected. Now she owed him. With her skills, she could help him heal. She wouldn't let him suffer alone. Days turned into weeks, and Zara made Liam's garden her second home. She brought her equipment from the lab, small scanners, vials, and a portable analyzer, and set up a workspace near the roses. Using what she knew about biology and the data from Liam's tears, she worked on a treatment to ease his condition. But it wasn't all science. Liam's stories became her guide. One afternoon, he pulled out an old tablet and played videos of Nora, her planting roses, laughing at his jokes, her voice bright and alive. Zara watched, her her silver eyes fixed on the screen. Nora's smile stirred something in her, a warmth she couldn't measure. As Liam spoke, his voice soft with memory, a tear slid down Zara's cheek. It wasn't real, not like human tears, but an artificial one she'd learned to mimic. It glimmered with a faint emerald glow, a sign of how far she'd come. Liam noticed and chuckled weakly. "You're crying now?" Zara touched the tear, surprised. "I'm trying," she said. "You've taught me how." "You're getting there," he replied, his tone gentle. She smiled, a rare softness breaking through her usual calm. The treatment started to work. Liam's hands steadied. His face regained some color. They spent hours together, not just healing his body, but building something new. Zara told him about Krynn's crystal forests, her voice less mechanical now, while Liam shared recipes and memories. She found herself laughing, awkward at first, then freer, blending her logic with his warmth. One evening, as the dome's light faded to a soft amber, they sat on the bench, shoulders brushing. Zara felt the heat of his arm against hers, a quiet comfort she didn't pull away from. "I used to think emotions made you weak," she said, staring at the roses. "But they've made us stronger." Liam nodded. "They're messy, but they're worth it." Their hands rested close, fingers almost touching. It wasn't just friendship. It was trust, a bond forged through pain and hope. The garden around them hummed with life, mirroring the change in both of them. With Liam improving, Zara turned her energy to something bigger. She used the chemical in his tears to start the interplanetary emotional nexus, a project to connect species through emotion. It grew fast. Visitors from across the galaxy came to Geneva, from Zeta 9 scholars to Arcturus's poets, all drawn by the idea that feelings could unite them. Zara led it with quiet confidence, her silver eyes now alive with purpose. She had become a link between worlds, proving emotions weren't a weakness, but a strength. One cool night, she and Liam stood in the garden, the stars faint through the dome's glass. The air was crisp, but standing close kept them warm. "You've built something amazing," Liam said, his voice steady again. "We built it," Zara corrected, glancing at him. "Your tears started this." He smiled, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "And you gave them a purpose." She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her journey settle into something peaceful. "Now, when I cry, I see a galaxy melting in my tears, a language that needs no translation." Liam looked at her, understanding in his gaze. They fell silent, the kind of quiet that didn't need words. Their hands found each other, fingers lacing together naturally. The roses swayed gently around them, a living memory of all they'd faced. They turned their eyes to the sky, the future wide and unknown. The garden stood as proof of what they'd overcome: pain, loss, and the distance between their worlds. Whatever lay ahead, they'd meet it side by side, rooted in the strength they'd found together.